Thank you, John. Listening to that music, I got this terrible urge to start stripping.
Oh, 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 God! I'll never play that song again. Jeez.
Take it off, babe. Take it off.
Rocky Mountain Way, Joe Walsh. Okay, it's got a good grinding groove to it, but
Oh, yeah, that was a grinder. There's no question about it. Oh, talking about grinding, terrible crisis this morning in the coupe de carp. I go down, I let the birds out. It's pretty cold, but they still like to come out. And in the process, there's a great big gray squirrel. I guess the squirrel has caught on to the fact, hey, inside the coupe de carp is grain, food. So in he goes. Oh boy! About half the pigeons, my pigeons, are nesting right now. They're sitting on eggs. You know, mother and father are sitting together on the eggs, and they were not very pleased. We got the squirrel out of there. I don't know if I'm going to have a permanent problem or not. If anybody's got any ideas how I can keep a gray squirrel out of my coupe de carp, please let me know. These are the kinds of crises that plague our household. I wish it was the worst thing, believe me. As always, folks, feel free, and I really mean this, to phone, text, write, email, whatever grabs you about any issue under the sun, okay? And it's something that you think is important. There's no question. I mean, the texts that come in, hi Lowell, hi John, etc. They're welcome. But what I'm really looking forward to, and what we really need, are comments relating to the day's topic. I mean, the fact is, particularly if you're on Facebook, you've got any other number of avenues to say hello to friends, etc., etc. But for 1/2 hour, I like to debate the issues, and I like to hear. I want to hear from people like you as to what concerns you. That's one of the ways that we can pick up as to exactly what's going on in people's minds, because I think in many cases we really don't know what's going on. So that's one of the reasons why I would really like it if you would comment on our topic. And in that regard, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 of course being the highest, how important is Canada's growing debt to you? Not much comment about this. By now, I'm sure you know that the Trudeau government, and I find this really incredible, but it is a fact, the Trudeau government has added more debt to Canada's books than all the other prime ministers since Sir John A. combined. Did you know that? I mean, it's been fairly well publicized. This prime minister in 5 years has racked up more debt than all other prime ministers that we have ever had, including prime ministers during the war. But nobody seems very concerned about this. In fact, there's a latest poll that's out that indicates only about 16% of the population is giving it much thought. The national debt, and that doesn't include the provincial debt or personal debt, but the national debt is now at about $1.5 trillion. Now I know to most people that doesn't mean it. Let me just say this: $1.5 trillion. That's a hell of a lot of bananas, believe me. Okay, that's a lot of money. And for me, one of the most disturbing aspects is there does not appear to be a plan to repay it. Very clearly, I'm not going to be repaying it. I doubt very much if you who are listening will be repaying it. It's going to be our children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, those who are coming behind us, who are going to have to pay for this. I don't think it's fair that, we're living high off the hog here. We're living the high life in this country, and we are compared to most others. But it's our children, etc., that are going to have to pay for it. But I'd like to know on a scale of 1 to 10 how important this is to you. As I say, latest poll indicates that most Canadians, it's not very important. And I can understand this. I mean, I think for a lot of Canadians, there are other concerns. But I would be interested to know Is it of any concern to you at all? This mounting debt, and it's, don't forget. I mean, it's $1.5 trillion today. Tomorrow, who the hell knows? I mean, it's 100 billion more here, $100 billion more there. Doesn't seem to be any concern about throwing it out, not only at Canadians, but I mean, we're throwing billions of dollars at other nations as well. I don't understand how a nation that's as deeply in debt as ours can throw billions of dollars at other countries, including, by the way, now we don't give them a billion, but we give them several $100 million. I'm talking about China. I mean, that's some of this is totally illogical. But I don't know. Does it concern you? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned does it make you? John, once again, go through the numbers and the text for me, please.
Sure. The phone number and the text number, 613-413-2217. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, the number's right there at the bottom of your screen. You can connect to email, etc. Just go to blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. All your show links are there. We love your calls. We love your thoughts. 613-413-2217.
On the same vein, or in the same vein, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a concern to you is global warming? Now, the reason I ask is that one of the reasons that our debt is so high and growing is because we are spending billions and tens of billions of dollars on so-called green energy projects. If you check the budget, you're going to see billions and billions of dollars being poured into what I would say are green energy projects. But it's not the projects. It's the fact that the Trudeau government, since coming to power more than 5 years ago, has killed hundreds of billions of dollars worth of green energy projects. I get that word right. They've killed, as you know, pipeline after pipeline after pipeline, which has cost us billions and billions of dollars. So, and the assumption is that somehow or other, global warming is of major concern. I'm not sure. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is global warming? Should we be spending hundreds of billions, tens of billions, or even billions of any number on global warming? And by the way, in that regard, when we're talking about pipelines, the Trudeau government has now been in power, 5.5 years? In 5.5 years, we know Energy East was canceled. There was another pipeline to the West Coast, name escapes me now. Trans Mountain is partially going ahead. Wait till I tell you about that one. But it just, and Keystone killed because we didn't really care. So let's talk about the one that the Trudeau government approved, not only approved, but bought. I did some research just before coming on the air. Trans Mountain, after 5.5 years of Trudeau government, Trans Mountain is now about 20% complete. In 5.5 years. Not only that, but get this. If you wonder where all the money goes, back when Trudeau came to power and the Trans Mountain was going to go ahead at no taxpayer expense whatsoever, it was purely a private enterprise. The cost was about $4.5 billion. That's what they figured. Today, the cost is estimated to be, when it's finished, about $13 billion. So the same pipeline to do the same job, 5 years of stalling by the Trudeau government, soon to be 6 years of stalling, has in essence tripled in cost, from about $4.5 billion to about $13 billion. And if there are more delays, it'll go higher than that. I mean, billions, just hemorrhaging for no reason. In fact, sometimes you get the idea that global warming and emissions are more important to the Trudeau government than COVID. I mean, here we have a government that still won't close the airports in the face of undeniable requirement to do just that. But they're going to reduce greenhouse emissions by 40 to 45% in the next 7 or 8 years, which would, I mean, if in fact they did that, That would essentially destroy Canada's economy. To reduce our greenhouse emissions 40 to 45%, we would have to cancel all energy projects, most manufacturing, and most transportation in order to achieve that. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is global warming to you? So, we got two questions, and more than welcome to respond to both. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is the growing debt to you? Scale of 1 to 10, how important is global warming? A number to call once again, John?
613-413-2217.
And you've got some emails coming in here.
David says global warming equals a big fat 0 on his scale. Peter says global warming 0. Liberal scam. Makes money for crooked liberals and liberal insiders. Chrissy says on the debt, she says maybe a 7. But I'd like to see more into it for sure to make a more accurate number. On the global warming crisis, she gives it about a 5. Okay. Julie says it is scary because we're going to have to pay it back, which means Canadians are the ones going to be paying it back. So cost of living, groceries, gas, and taxes will all be higher. On a scale, I would say about an 8 of concern for her. Pete says, I don't understand how Trudeau gets away with all of this. Tim says, I am concerned with the way Trudeau has emasculated Parliament. Shutting down the committee investigating sexual harassment in the military is only the latest but most egregious example. This is precisely what he accused Harper of doing when he campaigned back in 2015. Doesn't anyone remember that? And a text at 613-413-2217. Bruce says, if you spend $1 each in every second, how long would it take to spend $1 trillion? He's done the math for us. 32,688 years.
Oh boy. on another issue here, and we still would like plenty more comment. I'm interested to hear that this business of sexual harassment in the military seems to be creating some interest out there. If you like, I will go at greater length on that topic. I'll do some more research tonight, but it depends entirely upon you, what you think is important. I do have another question. I'm torn here, and I would imagine that many of you are as well. India it's just a disaster. It just tears your heart out to see what's happening there. There was a picture last night, a video last night on, I think it was either CBC or CTV News, it was taken at night, and it was at least 50 or 60 cremation fires in a parking lot.
Yeah.
It was. Did you see that, John? That picture?
It just, the hair stayed up in my arms, Lowell. I can't. It's awful.
Ooh. They're just. I mean, it is so desperate there that they're cremating people in parking lots, building temporary, places to set fire to people. I mean, it's as simple as that. But that picture last night with all of those fires in one parking lot in one city. I mean, it's terrible. They're running out of oxygen. But my question is this: should we be doing anything to help India? What can we do? I saw an announcement from some government official that we're going to send equipment and so forth. And including apparently ventilators, which really surprised me. I thought that we required every ventilator we've got in this country. That once again, it seems to me, among other things, we're getting a bit of a mixed message here. But should we, if we can, we should help India. But what's your feeling on that? Should we take some of our equipment and send to India? What's your feeling there? Just while I'm waiting for some comment on that, let me just comment for a moment or two about our good friends up there in Pakenham. Have you ever been to Pakenham? What a great little town this is. World famous bridge there, the 5-span bridge. I'm not quite sure why it's famous, but it's quite attractive. It's no question. Spanning the mighty Mississippi River. But
it's one of the best picnic spots out there, bar none.
Okay. I see people having picnics there. God, it's not a bad idea.
It's fantastic.
The other really good idea, whether you're going to Pakenham or not, is if you need appliances of any kind, or furniture for that matter, but appliances in particular. Shields is a wonderful supplier of appliances, all the name brands, very reasonable prices. And right now at Shields, it's a big sale underway. If you go to Shields, SCHEELS.ca, you will see all of the product there. You'll see it. It's a very good website, very, very well done. You see the product, you see pictures, you'll see the regular price, and you'll see the sale price. Once again, folks, if we can, let's deal local. Not only that, but they've got it in stock. No, you don't have to wait a month. Every time I pick up Facebook and I see somebody waiting 2 months for a dishwasher or something, I say, what the hell are you doing? You know, give Shields a call. Go to shields.ca and order. They'll have it in your house in 3 days. Why would you wait a month? Doesn't make sense. Shields.ca. John, more emails coming in.
Robert says, no one's too concerned now. However, if world interest rates rise, that is when the results of it will be evident. The government will never be able to pay the interest and salaries of government workers, Canadian Forces, RCMP, etc. Nina says, debt is a 10 for her. Global warming is a 2. Sexual harassment in the military is 10. Corruption in the Liberal government, also a 10. And so she ranks those on a scale of
for you. You're doing some thinking here, some widespread thinking. Good for you.
Covered all the bases right there. Well done, Nina. On a scale of 1 to 10, the national debt and deficits are a 10 for me. The debt will impact everything that happens in Canada because the interest we have to pay impairs our ability to pay for the services that we need. I'm 56 years old and listening to Krista Freeland, I don't think I will see a balanced budget ever again. I'm sick to my stomach at the burden my kids will have to bear and the quality of life in this country, says Rob.
Let me just jump in here, John.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at some figures yesterday in this regard. The amount of interest we are now paying in Canada, this is in the national debt alone, it's coming very close to the same amount of money that the federal government spends on health care. And if we keep doing what we're doing, we will be spending more money on interest going to big banks, insurance companies, rich people. We will be spending more money on interest on the debt than we will on health care. That's the direction we're going. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
No problem. I'm just getting some of these comments lined up for us here. Where'd we go? James says, we're short on ventilators. We need to keep them for our people. However, if there's any other way we can help India, I am all for it. Tim says, I'd be more than okay with sending aid and equipment to India than I was with sending it to China. In the case of India, it is urgently needed, and they are an ally, not an adversary. We should do whatever we can. Anthony says, charity begins at home first, lol. Our hospitals are being overrun, not enough ventilators. How suddenly do we have them to give to others? I just don't understand. Ann says, we don't have vaccines, doctors or nurses to send to India, but whatever we can do, we should do to help. And Doka Tamar, I hope I said that right. You're on Twitch. I agree. This will be just like the masks. We will send ventilators out, then need them.
Talking about India, you know, there are still people out there, I hear from them all of the time, they're mad as hell at me, who don't believe that COVID is real, that it's some sort of a scam, just a glorified little bit of a flu or something like that. And most of the information we have about deaths are all inflated and so forth. And that we don't need to wear masks, and we sure as hell don't need to have vaccines, etc. You've heard it all. We still hear it. Let me just point something out. I know that many of you, and myself included, don't like lockdowns. There may be better ways, I don't know. But all I will say is this, that had we not taken whatever action we did, whether it's the lockdowns or the stay-at-home or the mask, whatever it is, this is what prevented Canada from becoming an India. I mean, folks, very clearly, I mean, this virus doesn't play favorites. If it has an opportunity, if it can jump from person to person easily, it will do so and does so. This is what's happening and happened in India. They obviously weren't nearly as vigilant about lockdowns and masks, and obviously they weren't. And this is what happened. This is what, if we hadn't done what we did, as onerous as some of these things are in this country, if we had not done what we did, we would be faced with the same kind of situation that we saw for a while in Italy, that we saw in Los Angeles, and that we are now seeing in India. Sorry, but it's a fact, folks. It's a fact, okay? Now, on another issue here, I keep throwing out, got all sorts of issues here. Doesn't seem to be very much concern over the fact that in 10, 11, 12 days, you may have to line up several miles to get a tank of gas. And when you do, the price will be double, treble, whatever. We may be 10, 11, 12 days away from being unable to buy any propane. We may be 10, 11, 12 days away from all of our jet planes running out of fuel and not having any fuel at Pearson Airport. But nobody seems very concerned. So I'm not going to deal with the fact that on May 10th or 11th, the plan still is to shut down Line 5. Nobody's concerned about it, so I'm going to move on. All I will say is this, okay? When you're in line for $5 a liter gasoline, just remember, I tried to warn you, okay? I tried to warn you. I hope that it doesn't come to that, but I'm going to tell you right now, the plans, talking to them on Friday, plans still are going to shut her down. 40 to 45% of all the gas, oil, etc., in Ontario and Quebec comes on Line 5. Most of the propane comes on Line 5. All of the jet fuel for Pearson comes on Line 5. But no concern. Okay, let's move on to something else. I made a mistake. John, I've told you before, I make a mistake maybe once every, 10, 15 years? I've made 3 or 4 mistakes like in 60 some odd years.
I've yet to hear one on this show.
And I made a mistake last week. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not a liberal. I don't know how to apologize.
Okay.
Last week I said 70% of all Canadians have not as yet had a single vaccine shot. Well, I was wrong. I was wrong. Folks, the proper figure is 75% of Canadians haven't received a single shot. In fact, according to the latest figures from Health Canada, 24.2% of Canadians have had one jab. That means slightly less than, slightly, I'll get it, slightly more than 75% of us have not had one jab. This is what's being lost in all of this. We keep all of these stories. The media is complicit in this. Oh, there's going to be 30 million Yeah, next year, or maybe 2 years from now, 30 million coming in. This week, there's going to be 1.5 million or 1.2 million, probably reduced to half of that. But the fact is that we're now well into 5 months of vaccines. Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost 5 months into this, and we are 75% of our population hasn't had a single shot yet. 75%. This is right from Health Canada, and they're boasting about it. But you see, they say, well, 24.2% of us have had a vaccine. Well, wait a minute. 24.2% have had. That means 75.8% have not. Am I right? Did I get the math right?
I think so.
It's crazy. But we are being so snowed, and Trudeau's a master at this. Oh, yeah, they're rolling in it. We're on plan. We're on scheme. We're on it. Wait a minute. We're almost 5 months, and 75% of us have yet to had a single shot. And by the way, I was right when I said that 97% of us haven't had 2 shots. Actually, it's even higher than 97%. But so 95%, not a single shot. 75%, not a single shot. 97% haven't had 2 shots. Ian, you're on CFRA.
No, you're not, Ian. You're on Blast the Radio.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Well, what did I say?
I guess so.
You
welcomed
him to CFRA. Go ahead.
The Line 5. I think
Yes,
it was
sir.
last week you talked about the committee
Yes.
that studied this and said there would be fuel shortages on both sides of the border.
Yes.
But I do believe Michigan also has pipelines coming up from the States, so they're not going to actually suffer any shortage.
Well, there's another consideration there. I mean, already Michigan is taking gas and propane from Line 5. They're not talking about shutting it off at the Canadian, the Michigan, what am I talking about here? They're talking about shutting it off across the Mackinac Straits. So the pipe will still be coming into Michigan to be able to supply them. I don't understand their thinking on this. You understand my point?
I think until they shut it off, people aren't going to understand. Until we don't have fuel.
Well, I hope I'm wrong.
Really. And when they show up at the pumps and there's no gas, then they'll start getting angry.
You know what's going to happen? Trudeau's popularity will go up another 7.2%.
Well, it could be anarchy, like I said. I mean, when there's no gas, nothing gets around. You know,
I don't know.
Could be a problem.
Excuse me. I'm hoping that it won't happen. There are negotiations underway, but I'm going to tell you, from what I hear, the plans are still to go ahead with this. Thanks for calling, Ian. I'm glad someone is interested. Thank you. You're absolutely right. Except I'm thinking, we're going to be short about 45% of our gas, et cetera, in Ontario, and Trudeau's going to go out and he's going to pump gas for a day, and his popularity will go up not 7.2 but 9.3%. Wait and see. Oh my God! Despite all of this, despite the fact that 75% of us haven't had a single shot, Canadians, for the most part, seem to think that Trudeau and the government has done a splendid job bringing vaccines into the country. We keep hearing about another million coming next week, 30 million next year. Most of us assume that we're vaccinating Canadians at a fantastic rate. We are not. We are not. This is all BS. Yeah, they've speeded up. They've speeded up from like about 50 a month to maybe 1 million a month now. But 5 months in, or almost, we're still 75% people don't have a shot. Centennial Glass. Centennial Glass was one of those local companies I keep urging you to use. And as I've mentioned a number of times, I don't know what federal government projects are being financed or if there's any assistance. My understanding is that there are some, particularly in this new budget. It's about 407,000 pages of the budget. But if you're wondering if you've got a project coming up, windows, doors, etc., putting in, I don't know, new screens, and you wonder if there is a government program to help you. I mean, everybody else is taking advantage. Why wouldn't you? Give Centennial Glass a call. They will know. They will be able to tell you what, if any, programs are there and how much you might be able to save. Whether there are government programs or not, you're going to save with Centennial Glass. Big company. They do a lot of work, wonderful work. Their prices are very, very good. The workmanship, second to none. Centennial Glass, Industrial Avenue here in Ottawa, and up there in Renfrew. Don't forget in Renfrew, they do great work in Renfrew too. Yes, John, coming up.
Text message at 613-413-2217. Lowell, just had my first shot today. Pfizer says a yearly booster will have to be given. Will Trudeau make that every 2 years, the way he acquires things? Probably. Robert says, speaking of ventilators, why has the media not reported that Trudeau gave a former Liberal MP a multi-millionaire contract to produce ventilators that ended up paying him $10,000 more for each one produced? Liberal corruption runs very deep. Joseph is new to the show, listening in Charlottetown, PEI. Joseph says, hopefully I'm not too late in the echo chamber on this question, but love to hear your thoughts on airlines and non-essential international travel.
Well, I'll give you my opinion. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. In my opinion, the fact that we have not stopped flights, particularly from these hotspot nations, is criminal. Failure of Trudeau and his government to put a stop to this has cost lives, and God knows how many lives, and will cost more lives for months to come. I mean, someone suggested that these variants, in fact, COVID itself, didn't swim here. It wasn't hatched in Timmins. It came from outside the country. These variants, and we now have them from Brazil, we have the one in the UK, we have the South African, God knows what else, and the one from India, very deadly. This is the double mutant. How did it get here? It came on these flights that the Prime Minister refuses to stop. And we all know that this is a farce, saying he stopped flights from India. All you got to do is get on an airplane from Delhi, go to Dubai, and flip across to Canada. They do it every day. No stop to that. It's criminal. It's costing us lives. It's costing us billions of dollars in lost business, et cetera, et cetera. And he's still, the premier in particular, Doug Ford, poor old Doug Ford, gets it in the neck because he's the guy that's got to give everybody the bad news. He keeps begging, stop the airplanes. At least stop them from coming in from India and Brazil, places that it's rampant. I mean, India is rampant. It's out of control in India, and we're still bringing people in from India. If that's not criminal, you tell me what's criminal. Jace, you're on Blast the Radio.
There you go.
We almost got you twice in one day, Lowell.
I'm improving. Yes, sir.
I didn't realize that Michigan was taking fuel out of Line 5.
Oh, sure.
I didn't realize that. Okay, so I guess to go back to the top of the hour, you said as far as the national debt goes, I rate that a 10. As far as global warming, I'd give that about a 7.5. As far as Justin Trudeau shutting down international flights, he needs to do that like immediately. And as far as this, the whole thing with Line 5, do you think maybe we, him, whoever, would have the guts to shut off Line 5 completely? And here's the reason why. If Michigan is willing to take fuel out of Line 5, but doesn't want to put it again, across the Straits of Mackinac, we have the answer, and that is shut it off completely.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, if it's not okay for us, then maybe it's not okay for them either. There you go.
Well, it's the problem. The problem is I don't think that the federal government has authority in that regard. This is a private business. This is Enbridge, so the decision would have to be up to Enbridge, and for Enbridge to do this would cost them, huge sums of money. But I just, to me, the whole thing is so confusing. People say, "Oh, well, Michigan's going to lose fuel as well." Well, wait a minute. Michigan is taking fuel now. As if Enbridge doesn't cut it off entirely, they would continue to do so. It's Canada. They would stop. And, here's the other thing. And that is that Michigan's argument is not without some merit. This pipeline was built, I forget now, back in the 50s, as I recall. There have been some accidents with it. And if there was a leak, it could seriously damage Lake Michigan, probably Lake Huron, maybe even Lake Superior. So, and I'm going to be honest with you as well. I believe that one of the reasons we hear so little about it is that there are people within the federal government who would not mind if it was shut off. There's an environmental issue here, and you know where a lot of the Liberals stand on that, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is support even in Canada to shut this thing down. As crazy as it sounds.
We're going to ride our bicycles all through January? Like, it's insane. Like, we need fuel. We need fuel. That just, there are no two ways about it. Either that or some other type of replacement. But we need some kind of fuel. And electricity is not going to cut it for the near term.
Let me just point something out, Ian.
Jace.
If you don't think the environmental movement in this country is prepared to cut off fuel supplies, I mean, the fact of the matter is the environmental movement in this country shut off Canadian fuel supplies to Eastern Canada when they canceled Energy East. I mean, we're importing, as you know, half of Quebec and all of the maritime provinces use only imported oil. Why? Because the environmental movement in Canada refused to allow them to buy Alberta oil. So that's the environmental movement is in some cases is totally irrational. Thank you for calling in. Good point. Good call. Yes, John, you've got some more here?
Yeah, we're almost out of time, but a couple of quick comments to wrap things up for you. Dean says, if a country has its own nuclear and space program, they probably don't need our help. Mike says, not only are anti-vaxxers spreading false information, again, Trudeau stood up in Parliament and claimed we were third behind the U.S. and the U.K. in terms of people being vaccinated in the G7. Now, we all know how far down the line Canada remains. That is not the first time he's lied through his teeth. Recently in Parliament, how is he able to come out and say such things when they're absolutely false? Why is he not held accountable for such a big lie?
Let me just comment. This morning, the UK declared itself free of the pandemic. There are still some cases, very few, very rare in the UK. But the UK says, in the UK, throughout the United Kingdom, the pandemic is over. Why is it over? Because more than 70% of the population has been vaccinated. Almost 40% of the population of the UK has received both shots. So for the Prime Minister, I didn't hear this, if the Prime Minister stood up and claim that we are close to the United States and the UK. He is lying through his damn teeth. 75% of our people have not had one vaccination. In the UK, more than 70% have had been vaccinated. Almost 40% have had both doses. I repeat, the UK, which had a far worse infection rate than even the United States back in January, the UK today declared itself free of the pandemic. So take that, Mr. Prime Minister, sir. Thank you all. We have to go. We're right over. Listen, I want to. We'll take some more of your text tomorrow, folks. Thank you again.
Lowell Green, live on blasttheradio.com. Show info and links at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Subscribe to the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more. Or ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. Join us live weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on blasttheradio.com.